Hello, welcome to a panel discussion about the League of Women Voters. This is the first in a series called Democracy is Not a Spectator Sport. It's brought to you by the League of Women Voters. This particular league is Southeastern Connecticut League, but we have engaged the conversation with members from other leagues as well. So welcome to our first program. I'd like to introduce those folks who are going to be talking about the league tonight. The first is Susan Campbell, who is a league member in New Haven. And next to her is Claire Sauer, who is a league member of Southeastern Connecticut, but she's a former member of the State Board of the League of Women Voters of Connecticut. And she's also a former legislator. On this side is Briona Dice, who is a league member from Southeastern Connecticut, living in New London. And next to her is Jeanette Holliday, who is a League of Women Voters member from Southeastern Connecticut, and she is brand new. She just paid her dues. So welcome to you all. My name is Judy Dolphin. I'm currently co-president of the State of Connecticut League of Women Voters, and I'm on the board of the Southeastern Connecticut League. Passed by Congress June 4th, 1919, and ratified on August 18, 1920, the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution guarantees all American women the right to vote. Achieving this milestone required a lengthy and difficult struggle. Victory took decades of agitation and protest. Beginning in the mid-19th century, several generations of women's suffrage supporters lectured, wrote, marched, lobbied, and practiced civil disobedience to achieve what many Americans considered a radical change to the Constitution. Few early supporters lived to see the final victory in 1920.
Won't I stop? Ooh la la, till we have suffrage. Vote whoa, won't I stop? Ooh la la, till we have suffrage. It's gotten ugly, they passed the 15. Still women have no right, no guarantee to liberty. Child health, wealth, and property. We'll raise our banner across this land, 'cause franchise isn't just the right of a man. You never saw, yeah, you never saw. You know we don't want to take freedoms from you, just want our rights and nothing less. We cry for freedom, oh, hear our voice and see we're equal to all men. We the whole people, not just male citizens, form this most perfect union. Caught in a bad romance. Caught in a bad romance. It is a horror, a cruel design that makes it criminal, a right that is mine. I want the vote. Vote, vote, vote. I want to vote. Well, I think you're psycho. I think that it's sick. I'm queen of my home, raise my babies, that's it. Don't need to vote.
No, no, she don't want to vote.
The rights of citizens shall not be denied or abridged by the United States on account of sex. We cry for freedom, oh, hear our voice and see we're equal to all men. We the whole people, not just male citizens, form this most perfect union. Caught in a bad romance. Caught in a bad romance. Votes whoa, won't stop, ooh la la, till we have suffrage. March, be courageous, fighting for our rights. We may just start greatness for the ages. Freedom, it is contagious. March, be courageous, fighting for our rights. We may just start greatness for the ages. Remember the ladies, not to be above, but equal to all men. We only ask to be part of this union. Comme dirait le français, c'est démocratie. Permettez-moi participer. I'm a citizen of this nation. An American. I want suffrage and independence. We cry for freedom, oh, hear our voice and see we're equal to all men. We the whole people, not just male citizens, form this most perfect union. I wanna wear pants. Caught in a bad romance. I want my suffrage and independence. Caught in a bad romance. Votes whoa, won't stop, ooh la la, now we have suffrage.
There will come a time, I think, when all people will recognize that the contribution of men and women to life is different, but equally important.
Eleanor Roosevelt was not a suffragist, and so her emergence into women's politics really came through the issues of the living wage, immigration, housing, education, sanitation. And this was what the League adopted as its own agenda. And so it was natural for Eleanor, once women got the vote, to throw her energies into the League's efforts. In the 1920s, she served as its vice president for legislative affairs. She monitored federal legislation and hearings in Congress and in the New York State legislature. What she learned from the League, certainly it exposed her to a wide variety of opinions and passions that she learned to marshal and to mobilize.
I can remember the day when the only place of leadership that was considered possible for any young woman was her own home. But she has found that in order to be the real leader at home, she must take up the full responsibilities of her citizenship.
She writes My Day column after My Day column, extolling the League of Women Voters' training mechanisms, their preparation for lobbying, their ability to keep people at the table. Eleanor writes, I've always found that the best workers in a political party frequently are graduates of the League of Women Voters. Members learn how to find out what they really want to know on a wide variety of subjects. The League of Women Voters trains good citizens who have a sense of responsibility about what goes on in their locality, in their state, and in their nation. When she leaves the White House and becomes a member of the first American delegation to the United Nations, then she really ratchets up her involvement with the League to help the League disseminate correct information to combat propaganda about the UN. So the League, to Eleanor, is a player and a partner in this campaign to promote the 4 freedoms at home and around the world. Eleanor believes that women must be at the table. What the League today does, I think, is that it prepares women to feel comfortable so they can join and enjoy political participation with both men and women.
In the 1920s, Eleanor Roosevelt served as Vice President for Legislative Affairs at the League of Women Voters, monitoring federal legislation and hearings in the Congress. That short video that you just watched demonstrated how Eleanor's membership changed the League and how the League changed her. The League of Women Voters United States morphed into being in 1920 after the ratification of the 19th Amendment to educate women how to handle their new voting responsibilities. I find inspiration in the following passage from a convention speech by our first president, Maud Wood Park, referring to interests hostile to the mission of the League. By far, the most serious of our opponents is the colossal inertia of large numbers of persons. If this nation ever faces final disaster, it will be because what is everybody's business is nobody's business except the self-seekers. We need to rewrite that old adage. In this respect, ours is a stupendous undertaking, for inertia is a thoroughly uninteresting opponent. Thrills do not come easily in a struggle against sheer dead weight, but that weight must be moved if we are to succeed. If we have the courage to try, we do not need genius or even extraordinary qualities in order to succeed. All that we shall require is steadfast faith in democracy, common sense, and persistence. If we have all 3 and keep them together, we are invincible. That is Maud Wood Park, the first president of the League of Women Voters. All these years later, the League has had those qualities and kept them together, and we have been and we will continue to be invincible. There's some invincible women sitting with me this evening, and I want to ask them to just briefly tell you why they joined the League, why they have remained a member. One of them has remained for at least 12 hours, and personal goals for the organization, and things that you've learned, what you've done within the League. And we're going to do this not with each person answering all those questions, but rather a conversation among us. So I'll start with, I think I'd like to start with our newest member of the League. Why did you join the League, Jeanette?
Well, a few different reasons, actually. I joined, first of all, to be perfectly honest, as a resume builder.
Absolutely.
I saw this as a great opportunity to gain some more exposure within the community, as well as learn some new skills to add to my repertoire. And then also, just it's something I've always been interested in politics, but never felt that I had enough available information. So this really appealed to me in terms of just making sure that I was always up to date and involved with what was going on, not just on the state level, but also in the federal level as well. So it's very exciting to be a member now, and I'm really looking forward to working with everyone.
That's great. I think it's a perfect foil to go to Claire next, because Claire's been a League member for a long time, and she built her resume with the League. So
Exactly.
Claire, tell us about it.
I first joined the League when I was first married over 60 years ago, and the League has had a profound influence on my life. every place I've moved, each time I go to a new state, I immediately join the League of Women Voters so that I'll know about each level of government.
Right.
And when I was on Long Island in Suffolk County, the Supreme Court issued its one man, one vote ruling. You were allowed to call it one man, one vote at that time. And our Suffolk governing body did not meet the standards, so they had to have a new legislature. So they needed a new charter, and that meant they needed a new charter commission. And it turned into a big political brouhaha. And the only thing that the Republicans and Democrats could agree on would be that I would be a member, just because I had been the chairman of the Suffolk County Council of the League of Women Voters. And it took them a long time to get the rest of the members named. And finally, they named 7 Republican men and 7 Democratic men. And they elected me their chair, and we had a great charter commission. Around the country, charter commission recommendations were going down to defeat, and ours passed beautifully. And we had, great press in all the newspapers, including the New York Times. And we finally got our legislature with the charter operating. And I looked at the legislature and I thought, I think I can do better than that. And so I ran against an incumbent in a district where the incumbent's registration was greater, and I won, and then was brokenhearted because I enjoyed serving on this Suffolk County legislature. But my husband was transferred to Connecticut, and so I joined the League of Women Voters and found out what was going on, then eventually ran again against an incumbent for the House of Representatives.
Wow.
And I won and served for 6 years in the Connecticut legislature. So I've had a great time.
It's a perfect link, Jeanette.
Yeah, and so it's
link.
really helped shape your career and your life.
It has just made my life a whole lot of fun. Yeah. And it would never have happened if it hadn't been for the League of Women Voters. And I enjoy it to this day.
And we're so appreciative of all of your service.
Yes, we are.
Rihanna, tell us about your connection to the League.
Well, it was amazing. I had an opportunity to experience a debate, and that's what drew me to actually become a member. It was so exciting, the fact that the people that was in the audience or that was there to listen to the debate had an opportunity, first of all, to write down the questions and themes and issues that concerned them. So what was amazing, I actually thought at one time the League of Women Voters actually, pick out the questions, but the questions come from the community. So by the questions coming from the community is something that's relevant and is very important to everyone there at that time. So once the questions was accepted, they asked the different candidates. And it wasn't where they pick and choose who they asked. It was done in a fair way. So I was impressed by that. And I said, I need to be a part of them. Because just imagine you had dialogue about issues that could concern the people in the community.
That really mattered to people that were there.
So that was one of the reasons why I joined. But then after I joined, I said, wow, it's really important that our young people understand about the importance of voting. Yeah. And what was so awesome is that I share, I said, well, what do you do? How do you educate youth? So what was wonderful is that you guys came out to one of our program, the ACE program, and I'm from the Drop-In Learning Center. So we have a program that that's held at the Williams School during the summer. So we were told, have the youth pick out 3 issues that matter to them. So they had to pick out 3 issues. Then once they pick out those 3 different issues, they were divided up in about 6 different tables. They had to discuss about these issues and figure out, about why it was important to them. Then they had to actually vote. Wow. And so what's nice about it is that you had a vote counter, someone who at the end
told see it in action.
Yes. So I just was very impressed by that. And that's something that I would like to see continue on, really getting the information out that their vote count. Yeah. And that was a good way to show that what concerned them in their community, they had a chance to express it. Then they had a chance to find out how everyone else feel about it, and then vote. And then the winning vote, the topic that received the most vote was the winner. So that was my experience, and that's why I'm here, and I plan on keeping, being here for a while.
And I have to say that I was part of that program as well as several other of our league members who put that on. And our goal was to show the Lady Gaga video, which you all just saw, because that draws in young people. And, crank up the volume on that, and you get this excitement. You get history, but you get it in a way that's very interesting to people. And we couldn't do it because the school blocks YouTube to protect the students. So much for that idea. But anyway, that's been a good thing, and it's really fun to go work with the kids. And I want Susan Campbell to tell you a little bit about her experience, because I heard her a year ago at a conference where she was our moderator, and her comment was, "I love the league because I've never been able to join because I've been a journalist. Right. And as soon as I retired from that, I joined the league." And I want you to tell us more about that, Susan. And maybe, I don't know that our audience might know that journalists can't belong to organizations.
No, you really can't. Ethically, you are discouraged, if not banned, from joining any organization, sending checks anywhere, sending money to a political candidate. That's frowned upon because you want to be unbought. And I appreciated that, but the first check I wrote, and I didn't retire, I quit. Big difference. When I quit working at the Hartford Courant, this was the first check I wrote, because I'm a big fan of some of the early suffragists, particularly the ones who never got to cast a vote. And I just hope they're in heaven sharing a beer and happy that it's turned out great. But I so appreciate the work that the League has done over the years, and I used to cover debates that the League would sponsor, and had that similar, like, wow, people get to talk to these people, and not press members. That's not that unusual as a member of the press, but regular rank-and-file voters get to talk to people who are going to have some say in their lives later, and I couldn't not join.
Well, we're very pleased that you have. How long have you been a member?
2 whole years.
Good. Very good.
I'm a veteran.
Good. I'd like to just comment briefly as well. I've, like Claire, joined the League in every state that I've lived in, because the League is a way of getting to know right away your town. You are paying attention to the council or the school board and you have a group of people that you can ask questions. Challenge for me was coming to Connecticut from Iowa, which was my last residence, and I didn't understand things like Gales Ferry being part of Ledyard or Oakdale being part of Montville or Uncasville, and all these little towns within towns. And Groton is really interesting. They've got Groton City and Groton Town. Well, I still don't understand that. But the League is a great way, when you move into a new community, to make connections with people.
To understand your landscape.
To understand your landscape. But also then to be able to converse with people on hard issues, difficult issues, and exactly what you said earlier, Jeanette, was it's a great resume builder. It's a fabulous resume builder. There's not a job I've had since I joined the League that didn't have some connection to what I learned in the League.
Yeah, you mentioned that the other night, that all of the skills that you've gained within the organization has really tied into every single position you've ever held.
Absolutely.
And when you run for office, the League background is gold.
I mean, for you, it just opened up a world of opportunity, and you were sought out as a resource in your situation. I think that's really valuable.
So what are some of the skills that you've learned in the League, and even new people? I mean, you're relatively new, Rihanna, but you just really described how you have learned about how to do a good debate.
That's a good point. I had a chance to be a timekeeper at the last debate, and that was exciting. It really was. Just the point that is so important, because these candidates are relying on you to really track their time, because they want to make sure that they get their information and their point of view out to the voters.
Yeah.
So it was a very important piece, to have that job, and I really enjoy it. But
and you didn't mess it up, did you?
no, I didn't. I did not. And it was a really good experience.
Did you get to cut anybody off?
No,
that would have been my favorite.
I know that probably would have been fun.
A little bit.
I did that as a moderator at many debates when the time was up.
Claire is an expert moderator. She's put quite a few people in their place over time. What are some of the other skills that you think you see coming out of participation in the league? We mentioned resume building for sure. Feeling like you're doing something really important.
Strategy. What I'm learning as working with communications is the league is very strategic, and I'm not. And to think about how you're framing the message, what's the best audience, these are things that I should know, but I don't. And I'm learning every phone call, every meeting, everything, every email exchange. Which there are a lot. But I'm learning, that's a really good point. I had not thought of that. So I'm hoping I'm learning it.
The thing that I learned through the league is good parliamentary procedure. And I have to say, most other organizations I belong to, I go crazy. That's not the way it should be run. The league does know its parliamentary procedure. And to have an effective meeting, you really need to know.
And that's such an issue. And I know with my personal experience in corporate world, even in, small business world as well, running an effective meeting is something that I would say probably 50% of meetings are not, regardless of where you are. So I think, Claire was saying, definitely rings true. It sort of helps with your organizational skills and also public speaking as well. I mean, Judy just came from a talk this afternoon, and I'm sure you would have been just fine without your experience with the league. But I'm sure that helped you quite a bit. So
I like the fact that we're teaching people how to advocate for themselves and that their vote counts and that it's very important for them to know about the issue. So I just think that right there is very important. In my job, one of the things we do is make sure that our parents understand that they need to register and vote. And after they register and vote, say if they move, they need to make sure that they re-register to let them know that they did move. And that their vote is very important and it counts. So really thinking about who's running, what's the issues that concern them. So that's one of the things that I learned, that it is important and what they have to say is important, and to make sure that they know when is there a debate is going on, and making sure that what do we need to do to make sure that they have an opportunity to be there and to be able to speak. So I love the fact that League of Women Voters partner with so many different organizations to make sure that these debates are taking place, and that's what it's all about.
I think it's great too, the education, how I was taught growing up, more of kind of on a personal note. My grandmother was really involved in town politics, and so it was always drilled in our head, vote, 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 and never, you need to vote, on the red side or the blue side. It was always just vote, that your vote actually does matter, like you were saying before. No matter how big or little the issue is, it's important that you vote on the little things that happen in your town because they do directly affect you. And in my parents growing up, our dinner table conversations were always talking about what was going on. They would always answer our questions really honestly, which I thank you very much for. And so, I just think it's important that we're missing that piece today, that kids even know how important it is to vote and what a privilege it is. And, it can be exciting because you are going to make a difference at some point.
At this point, we're going to be moving into a video that was made at the celebration of the 90th anniversary of the League of Women Voters of Connecticut. And we thought you would enjoy seeing part of this celebration and hearing more about the kind of work that the league has been doing all these years, and that we continue to do as we push toward our 100th birthday. So I don't know if the video is ready. If it is, we're all set.
It's a wonderful organization that does great things, that has a lot of wonderful people that belong to it. Its mission continues to be just as relevant now as it was 90 years ago.
their vision, their legacy of saying we could be nonpartisan, we can engage the public, we can have a voice, we can influence public policy decisions. All those things are still going on 90 years later, and we said, you know what, it's time to mark that milestone.
Those were some words from the 90th anniversary celebration of the League of Women Voters, and we'll get back to the event shortly. But before we go any further, let's take a look back and learn more about the history of this very important organization.
From its very beginnings, the League of Women Voters has dedicated itself to educating and informing the American public about how government works and the political process. Formed in 1920, the League grew out of the 7 decades-long fight for women's suffrage. A furious struggle at times, the movement was marked by mass demonstrations, arrests, and in later years, accusations of un-American activity. But through it all, the leaders stuck together. And finally, on August 18, 1920, the required 36 states voted in favor of the 19th Amendment, which stated that the rights of the citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of sex. Success at last, but by no means was the League's work done. In fact, it was really just beginning. Chapters began forming across the country, and before long, the League gained a reputation as a trusted source of non-biased information on public policy issues. As their reputation grew, so too did the number of people relying on the League's opinions and positions related to the issues facing our country. Political, but nonpartisan, the League is still very much a grassroots organization and has never wavered from its 3 original aims of fostering education in citizenship, promoting forums and public discussion, and supporting needed legislation. Now 90 years old, it's fair to say the League has been an overwhelming success and has helped millions of women and men become informed participants in government.
Now that you're all caught up, let's head back to Greenwich, where community leaders and League members gather to celebrate and honor the organization's achievements.
More powerful than kings and armies is an idea whose time has come.
Who else but the League of Women Voters could attract a crowd like this?
Many of us have worked with the League over many years on issues like healthcare and housing and other issues. So it's great to come together and celebrate the achievement and look to the future.
Becoming arguably the most powerful voting bloc in the nation.
Yeah. There were congressmen, state representatives, state senators, businessmen, and civic leaders.
The work of the League and what they've been doing, not only in Stamford and Fairfield County, but throughout the area, has been terrific. And in a bipartisan way, we get to come together and celebrate our democracy. And that's the best thing about this evening and what we're doing here.
All gathered together to celebrate the League of Women Voters.
Well, just the fact that they've been around for 90 years shows their consistency and their importance to the community and to the country in terms of making sure that everyone comes out to vote, participates in our democracy, and every voice counts. And that's the message that they bring, and that they do that on a local basis to really spread the message. And we can't get enough of that.
So we're actually celebrating a dual anniversary of the founding of the
Connecticut League President Cheryl Dunson.
People want to make a difference. They just think they don't know how. And I think that they also want to know how to have a voice, because so often when I meet even family and they complain about what's happening in the political system, I say, well, rather than just complaining to me, have you contacted your senator? Have you contacted your congressman? Because if you don't tell them, they're not going to know how you feel. And the League of Women Voters helps people have a voice.
Congressman Jim Hines explains why the League is more important today than ever.
The League plays a terribly important role by bringing together people from both the Democratic, Republican side around the idea that we can find common ground, that we can disagree agreeably, and they make recommendations, too, that they come at from a nonpartisan angle, but say these things are important to the Republic, and they push those things. So I'm a big fan and member of the League.
Newly elected Secretary of State Denise Merrill echoed the congressman's thoughts.
You know, honestly, the League of Women Voters information guides are the only source of unbiased information for the public. And they truly are regarded as nonpartisan. They don't have an axe to grind. They're not particularly wedded to any set of issues unless they've studied them very thoroughly, in which case they are not afraid to take a stand on issues. So I think that's critically important now. People don't know where to turn for information in the new media.
League member Peggy Reeves of Wilton shares her introduction to the League.
When I first moved to town, I found that the smartest women in the room belonged to the League. They actually led me into my first job. I worked for the League registering voters, and when the position came up for the Registrar of Voters of the town, I took that position and I ran all of the town elections for 14 years. And then that was an easy segue into my job for a state representative.
The one thing that the League does is it engages in issues, not in personalities.
Addressing the crowd via Skype, keynote speaker Christy Todd Whitman noted how the League cares not about choosing sides. Instead, they care only about the issues. State Senator Bob Duff agrees with the former New Jersey governor.
They really never rest on their laurels. They're always looking to push and prod and continue to make government even better and to serve the people better. That's why I'm here tonight at this event, because I really appreciate all that they do and all that they've done, and I think it's really a good cause for celebration.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we're going to continue with our conversation. And right before we went to the video, Claire was about to tell us a story, and it's a very appropriate story, so I'd like to ask her to tell it.
Well, years ago, one night my husband came home from work, and he said that the people in the office were talking about some current events. And one person asked him, how come you know so much about all of these things? And there was quite a note of pride in his voice when he said, my wife is a member of the League of Women Voters. That said it all.
That did say it all. It did say it all. And I think we want to make a comment that both men and women have been a part of the League since 1974. And it's very important, although we don't have any of our men members around the table, it wasn't because they weren't interested, it's just they weren't available at this particular time. There are men who are presidents of leagues around the country. There are several men who are presidents of leagues in Connecticut. Men and women, we need to work together. It is not a women's job to make sure that democracy is for everyone and that people participate. Women have worked hard because they had to work hard to get to this point, and now we need to be in a team. So I like to sort of toss out, how can we continue to change the face of the League to include people of various populations who have not tended, at least here, to be active parts of the League of Women Voters, both men and women, people of color, people of all backgrounds, young people and older people, because we tend to be older in the League. We're thrilled to have younger folks with us, but the organization, if we're going to be invincible, has to be complete. It has to reflect the population of our area and of our country. So do you have ideas, thoughts, ways to do that?
Well, one of the things I noticed that it is a great step forward is partnering with the library. So we're celebrating this year a voter registration day, September the 23rd, and I'm so excited about that because you're connecting with different groups that enter the library to make to encourage them to register to vote, and then getting into the schools.
Yeah, I agree.
And so I think those are the steps that you have been taking, and we need to go forward in those steps. And when I say the schools, I'm talking about from elementary and really daycares all the way up to college, and really making sure that we're having a face in those areas and letting people know that their vote counts and they need to register and invite them in to be members.
Yeah, I completely agree. Definitely following through that educational lifespan. I know my experience particularly, I went to college in Massachusetts, and they didn't focus on politics outside of the school in terms of, the only things that we were encouraged to get involved with was student government elections and things like that. But I can remember going, when John Kerry was running for president, going to Boston with my friends and seeing him speak in Boston before the elections. And it was just very empowering. And it was hard to get that group of friends together, but we did. And I just think that it's so lost on people. You can teach it in elementary school, but it needs to follow all the way through. And I think in high school, it gets talked about it. But as you were saying with your kids, it doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel local. They don't understand that these issues that are actually being talked about and going on are real, tangible things in their everyday lives. So I definitely agree with you. I think that's important to just start in the educational systems from as early as we can, really, and just keep it going.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good points. How about Susan?
I think it can't be overstated the importance of re-enfranchising voter groups who feel disenfranchised right now. And however we can do that, and however we can open the door wider, as you say, make sure people are registering to vote, make sure they understand the process and that they have to be a part of the process, or the same people who always vote will continue to rule. And that's not worked out really well for everybody.
No. The League, I don't know if they still have the thing, it was a pamphlet, Don't Be Half a Voter, about registering in a political party. And I think it's important to emphasize that people people call themselves independent. They think that they're above politics. Hopefully we're all independent when we get into the voting booth.
Exactly.
But it would help both political parties so much if these unaffiliated voters would choose a party. They could still vote for whomever they wish when they get into the voting booth.
I don't think a lot of people understand that, to be perfectly honest with you. Just in talking with peers and people even older or younger than myself, they don't understand that if they do register as a Republican or a Democrat, that they feel they need to always vote that ticket. It's not about that. It's about voting for the person that you personally feel is going to do the best for the position, or the answer to the question that you best feel is suited for your town or your situation. So I think that's important.
If those unaffiliated voters would register, they'll bring the Republicans and the Democrats closer to the center.
Completely agree.
And there's a good point when you say, in fact, today when we were doing our program for this large group, somebody said, well, I'm an independent. And it was pointed out to them that there is an independence party, which we really don't hear anything about in Connecticut, as well as Green Party, Libertarian, and a variety of other parties. If you aren't going to register with a party, you have to not check any boxes that say register with a party. You are remaining unaffiliated, as Claire points out. And there was the League of Women Voters of Connecticut did a study on primaries, because the big question was, why can't unaffiliated people vote in one of the party primaries? Well, the Supreme Court has ruled that the parties have ultimate control over who can vote in their primaries, and they have not chosen, for one short period of time, under Lowell Weicker, there was the Republican Party was open to unaffiliated, but then it closed again. So it's, and we thought that if you had open primaries that we'd have more participation, but that's been proven across the country where they do have open primaries, where it hasn't increased the population that comes out and votes in a primary. And that's the critical vote, because they're the people who are going to be on the ballot in the fall.
And we're coming up on an election now that will have historically low turnout. People don't go vote for these during these elections, these midterm elections, and that's stunning to me that 20% can.
Is stunning. Are we ready to move to our video? We're going to just take a quick look at who are some of our League members.
How amazing that the spirit of the suffrage movement and the shock of the First World War came this great idea that a nonpartisan civic organization could provide the tools that the public needed to advance our democracy. wise League leader once said that the success of democracy doesn't depend on a few persons who do great things, but on many persons who do small things faithfully.
I'm Jacqueline Achang from the state of Oklahoma.
My name is Alexandra Dixon.
I'm Jeanette Roveri.
So my name is Sharon.
I'm Andrea Kaminsky.
I'm Barbara Zia.
My name is Ernestine Moss.
I'm Diane Habino, president of the League of Women Voters of Nebraska.
I'm George Brown.
I'm Dara Thompson.
I am Stacy Deppner-Hovey.
My name is Faye Williams, and I'm a member of the Indianapolis League of Women Voters.
I started volunteering because my mother volunteered, and her mother volunteered, and her mother volunteered. We go to the naturalization ceremonies and register new citizens. And it is one of the most exciting things to help someone register to vote and see them so excited. These are new citizens who just can't wait.
I started off as just being a league member, and eventually in 3 months I was the president of the local league. And mainly what I do is try to get the word out. Your voice is your vote. Your vote is your voice.
I found letters in our historical files from members of both parties, in this case criticizing the League for its position, but what's interesting is the League's position did not change.
We are listened to. The county council listens to our testimony, planning department, and we're pretty well known for our voters' guides that we do every election.
The League over the years has been a trusted organization. Even when I grew up, we didn't think there was a debate on television unless the League did it. We try to help educate people on the fact that you can be political, and we're definitely political all the time, but we're nonpartisan. The message that we try to bring home is that democracy only works if you participate.
I practice law, and part of the ways in which I learned to really interpret and understand legislation and public policy was through the League of Women Voters.
And I chose to intern at the League of Women Voters because in high school I had actually worked with the League at the local level. It's been a great opportunity just to see how a workplace works, and then also to specifically see how a nonprofit works.
I've been executive director of several nonprofits, and people say, how do you know this stuff? And it was public relations, it was fundraising, it was board development, all the things I had to do as a League person just immediately translated into doing a pretty difficult job.
It has allowed me to just have a network across the state that wouldn't be as easy just in a particular job. Young professionals today also bring in a whole new generation of understanding. They look at the world just like every generation in a different way.
We're working for the future, working with government issues that affect our children, our grandchildren, and I have great-grandchildren now, so I'm hoping that the issues that we bring forward and work on will help them have a better life.
The League will be known as the place to find information about candidates and issues. I want to continue to work so that League is known as the place to find great information.
We are going to help this country of ours with civil discourse. We are going to educate more than we already do. We are going to be the force that brings people together to talk in a civilized way about issues. That's what we're going to do.
We're back, and I'd like to address this last segment to our society today, where we seem to have difficulty having civil discourse. We tend to the extremes. In fact, Claire, you talked about trying to find some common ground coming in from either side. If we had more participation in primaries, we might moderate things a little bit. Civil discourse is tough, and we have these debates, and sometimes they're not so civil, but we try to moderate them so that they are. But how do you see the League playing a role in fostering civil discourse, especially in this time of red and blue? I am so sick of those titles, red and blue. What do you think?
I think the League takes the lead already by sponsoring the debates and moderating them in such a way where the fanging that might go on is kept to a minimum. I think in the way we are presented in traditional media, when we write letters or we write essays and someone responds in a particularly virulent way, we do not respond that way because there are dragons there. There's no end to that discussion, and it goes nowhere at the same time. So, and I think reminding, and I'm on a particular part of the political scale, but I think if we accept that the answers are probably going to come from the middle, that we foster that kind of conversation, even those of us who would pull right or left, that the answers are probably right here.
Something popped into my head when you said that, and we didn't say it earlier. We need to emphasize that the League is nonpartisan, which means we don't visibly support a candidate or a party, although all of us participate in the voting booth, I can assure you. But we're also very political, and people tend not to see what that difference is.
Really is.
And political is that you're trying to help your government at whatever level make positive changes. And you do that through advocacy, through letters to the editor, through informed panel discussions, and that sort of thing. So for people to think that the League is only voter service is to diminish the role that the League plays, because we're very involved in advocacy on positions that we have studied. Do you want to just mention the study process?
No, go ahead. It was just that's what I wanted to be sure came out, that we do have positions. We study issues, come to consensus, and then we really go to work on trying to get some of these things passed. And that's an exciting part of the League, that I think you're right. We can't just emphasize the voter service, as important as that is.
Do you want to tell a little bit about what the study involves, the short version?
Well, I know what it was back in my day, 100 years ago.
It's still the same, but we use email now.
Well, we used to have committees studying an issue, and they'd go into really great depth. And as I say, way back when we were studying water resources, and we'd have scientific people calling the League and asking for information because we had so much information on these subjects. We were just recognized as being authorities because we would study, because things were different back then, that the younger women, most of us didn't work after our children were born, so we'd have little kids running around and we'd be studying these leagues. And it was such an intellectual outlet for us. We just got so excited about working on these subjects, so that we'd really know the whole thing from A to Z.
But now with electronic media and all the opportunities for, I love Google. I probably shouldn't say that on public television, but I love Google because you can find out anything and it can take you to a rich resource of information. Right. And so for committees doing studies, there's just as much work involved, but less probably meeting time.
Right.
But that is the basis of civil discourse, is to have information.
Right.
You're kind of a social media marketing person.
Yes.
What do you see as the role for the League in this whole issue of civil discourse?
Well, I think that the League particularly has the upper hand when it comes to the possibilities of social media with politics, because The League does a lot of research. A lot of people are going online to get simple questions answered. And I think that the League, with all of the information that it does capture and provide, I think that it's a good, no-nonsense kind of way to get that instant gratification that's so talked about the younger generation. And, outlets like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, things like that are very visual these days, which I know I was telling Claire and Judy about the visual aspect to younger generations. And I think that sometimes what can be out on the internet, unfortunately, on Google, isn't always true.
That's true.
So I think that information coming from the League can be very beneficial in terms of, removing some of that gray area.
Mm-hmm. There's so many people that I get the impression, don't confuse me with facts, my mind is made up.
Yes, ma'am.
And we need the League to counteract that sort of thing.
Well, thank you all for being here for this wonderful discussion.
Thank you.
It's obvious that we love the League, and we hope you will too. Join us again on the 30th of October for a program called Voting, November 4th, 2014.
Marilyn Mackey is my name. League of Women Voters is my game. When I moved to North Stonington, I joined the League to meet like-minded men and women who shared my deep interest in the running of our communities, state, and country. League members are those kinds of people, interested, self- or school-educated, and willing to spend time to change the world for the better. Instant gratification doesn't allow for a full understanding of issues. It takes study. The League says study without action is futile, but action without study is fatal. I never got a college degree, but I got my PhD from the League of Women Voters. Skills that have held me in good stead were learned at the knee of the League. Its dues are the least expensive way to get $1 million education. Join us.